What is filling your attentional space? Let's do a quick check in. What is occupying your attentional space at this moment? In other words, what's on your mind? Are you are this book and your thought about it consume 100% of your attentional space? If so, you will process it faster and better. Are you devoting your third of your attention to thinking about the smartphone by your side? Is part of your mind playing what you will do after completing the chapter or distracted by something you will worried about? Are these concern or anxieties popping out of nowhere? Directing your mental gaze to what is currently occupying your attentional space can be an old exercise, as we rarely notice what has taken hold of your attention but spend most of our time totally immersed in what we are experiencing. There is a term for this process: meta awareness. Becoming aware of what you are thinking about is one of the best practice for managing your attention. The more you notice what's occupying your attention space, the faster you can get better on track. When your mind begins to wander, which is which it does remarkably 47% of the time, whether you are writing an email, taking part in the conference call, watching a TV show, or having dinner with your family, you are essentially spending half of your time and attention on what not in front of you, lost in the past, or calculating the future. That's a lot of time and attention to waste. While there is an immense value in letting your mind scatter, most time we did better to focus on the present. This is essentially what mindfulness is: noticing what your mind is full of, what you are thinking, feeling, and perceiving at any given moment. Mindfulness adds another important dimension to the mix: not judging what you are thinking about. When you become aware of what is occupying your mind, you realize it can come up with some pretty crazy stuff, not all of which is true, like negative self-talk that sometimes take root in your head. Everyone's mind does this on some level, so you shouldn't sweat it too much or take all your thoughts too seriously. As one of my favorite writer, David Kane, puts it, all thoughts want to be taken seriously, but few warrant it. Simply noticing what is occupying our attentional space has been shown to make us more productive. One study asked participants to read a detective novel and try to solve the crime. It compares reader whose mind wander without awareness with those whose mind wandered consciously. Solve rates were substantially higher for the group that was aware that their mind had wandered. We perform significantly better on every task when we are aware that our mind is wandering. If you pay attention to what's on your mind, which is admittedly hard to do for more than minutes or so, you will notice that our constant content of our attentional space is constantly changing. You will understand that it truly is scratch pad with thoughts, tasks, conversation, projects, daydreams, conference call, and other project of the attention continuously passing through. You will also find that our attentional space expands and shrinks depend on your mood. Objects of attention fade from the space just as quickly as they came, usually without your awareness. For all the power it proves, the content of your attentional space is ephemeral. Its memory lasts for an average of just 10 seconds. Tasks that pair well. So, what exactly can fit comfortably within attentional space? Tasks take different amount of attentional space depend on their complexity. A meaningful conversation fills up most, if not all, of it. that conversation will suffer as a result of trying to cram too many other things into your attentional space. When you leave your phone on the table during a conversation, for example, you are bound to be distracted by the possibility of incoming messages. Not all tasks require this much of attentional space. There are two kinds of tasks in our life and work: habits which can perform without much thoughts and require minimum attention space, and complex tasks which can be done well only with dedicated focus. Many experts argue that we cannot multitask, which is often true for the tasks that require focus to do properly and thus occupy a large amount of attentional space. But the same time is not true for the habits. In fact, we are able to multitask surprisingly well with the habits, though we may not be able to carry on two conversations simultaneously. We can walk, breathe, and chew bubble gum while we listen to an audiobook. The last task being one that is easily occupy what left to our attention. Habitual tasks like cutting your nails, doing the laundry, archiving email you have already read, and grocery shopping don't require nearly as much attention as more complex tasks. This makes it possible to multitask without compromising the quality of your action. Every Sunday, I like to lump my personal, relative notes, maintenance tasks together. Tasks that help me maintain who I am, like preparing meals, trimming my nails, and cleaning the house, and do them all in an allotted period of time while listening a podcast or an audiobook. It's easily one of my favorite weekly rituals. You can do the same. For example, on your daily commute, if you listen to an audiobook during that routine, hour-long trip, you will be able to read an extra book each week by utilizing the attention freed by habitual task. Habit take up every little attentional space because they take little thought once we get going with them. As a cognitive neuroscientist, Stanley Dehel, author of The Consciousness and the Brain, told me, if you think of the habits such as playing the piano, dressing, shaving, or driving on the familiar route, these are so automatically that they do not seem to prevent any conscious thought. He says that while habits like these may require some level of conscious initiation, once we begin the behavior, the rest of my process take care of itself. We may need to make conscious decision occasionally, such as when we are getting dressed and our usual Tuesday outfit is in the wash, but after the intervention we can switch back to the rest of habit sequence without much thought. Dehan believes that this process is presumably driven by the sequence relatively active in the brain. The brain even assists when we try to do more than one habitual thing simultaneously. By rerouting blood flow away from the prefrontal cortex, the brain's logic center, to the basal ganglia, which help us run through the habitual sequence of daily routine. Our attentional space can process even more when we are working on the unrelated task. Take sorting and putting away the laundry while talking to on the phone. For example, these activities tap into the several senses, sorting laundry into our motor and visual senses, the phone call into our auditory sense, because we use different brain region to process them. The tasks aren't completing for the same mental resources. There is the tipping point in the attentional space. Of course, doing too many habitual tasks at the same time will cause your attentional space to become overloaded. This is especially true if what you are doing is not totally automatic and require frequent mental intervention. Ultimately, the point is this: the number of habitual tasks we can fit into our attentional space is much higher than the number of demanding ones. Tasks that we can do out of habit, such as reading a book, having a deep conversation, or preparing a progress report for our boss, consume significantly more attentional space because doing them well demands that we consciously manipulate information on the fly. If we tried carrying on the conversation with our significant other out of habit, we did probably not process or remember it and find ourselves falling back on the statement like, yes, dear. If you divide your work task into four categories I described in chapter 1, an activity I highly recommend because I will referencing it later, you will notice that your most necessary and purposeful task cannot be done out of habit. This is exactly what makes these tasks so productive. You accomplish more in doing them because they require focus and brain power and take advantage of unique skill set. Anyone can do mindless work out of habit. This is one of many reasons why distracting tasks are so costly while these tasks are attractive and stimulating. Think watching Netflix after a long day at the office instead of grabbing dinner with a friend. They steal the precious time from your most producing work. Spending time on our most producing task means we usually have very little attentional space to spare, if there is any left at all. Unlike the habitual task, we are not able to fit two complex activities into our attentional space at the same time. Remember, we can focus only on the 40 bits of information, and a single complex task requires most of these bits, and on the top of limit, we can process only so much at one time. Since even moderately complex task consumes most of our attention space, we are at best to pair something habitual with more complex tasks. There is no easy way to predict how much attentional space a task will consume. For example, driving will demand much less if you are an expert than if you are a driver's ed student. You are better able to chunk together information on the fly when you have experience with a given task, which provide more freedom to focus on other things. Another variable is the actual size of your attentional space, a measure that's different for everyone.